Kuphina kuphi emakhaya amadolobheni asekoplasta khona sawubona ke mbukele and warm welcome ke ehlelweni lethu Yilungelo Lakho, it's your ride sinilethela ke lona bukhoma la kuhamba phambili SABC 1 Mzansi for sure naku SABC Plus mina ke ngimsimpiwe Ngcongwane mbukele namhla ke sibuke indzaba yekwanza kubathengi labathathelwa timoto ngemabhange ngendzaba yekusindwa ngetikwenedi ngenxa yokuntengantenga kwemnotho asizingene endzabeni yethu namhla. More and more South Africans are having their vehicles repossessed as they default on their repayments. Libandla le-TransUnion lithi ke likhuphukile lizinga labathengi labehluleka ukubhadala timoto tabo. Kepha ke ingabe luthini lona lolu hlelo lusemthethweni lekumele ukuthi lilandzelwe emabhange uma ke akuthathela imoto yakho. Athini wona amalungelo akho? Asasive ke imivo yebantu ukuthi uthini.
I don't think that people are aware of their rights. I think once you get the letter from the bank stating that your car is going to be repossessed, you go into a panic and you feel like that's the only option that you have. You don't know that you do have other rights and there's other alternative ways for you to solve the debt problem that you have. So you don't necessarily always have to give your possessions over.
I don't think people are well aware of their rights when it comes to repossession. So I think maybe if you shouldn't be signing anything if you don't have a lawyer at the end of the day. So rather advice with your lawyers, because there is a second option. Life happens to everybody.
Angazi ngaba situation yokurepossesswa, but I will assume if being fair to the situation, if they figure bezothatha imoto yabo, I'll just give it to them because they own the car.
People are a bit afraid as soon as the bank are phoning them, or they're afraid to phone the bank because they're scared that it's at that point and it's very serious. So I think they're scared to have the conversation with the bank, and that's why it happens, because they've kept quiet, and the next thing, the repossessing people are there. So yeah, I think that people need to communicate.
Ilungelo lethu akusukuthi siyalazi kahle ngoba manje sigcina vele uthola ukuthi singma areas imoto ziyathathwa without ukuthi sikwazi ukuthi sikhulume namabhenki siwatshele ukuthi ingxaki nayi inkinga lana nalana yabona sikwazi ukuthi siyilungise so uthola ukuthi sesidoja sabambe nama phone calls abo yi problem esiba nayo leyo.
I think a lot of individuals aren't aware on their car repossessions that they can actually turn to debt review or debt counselors to help them reduce their monthly payments on their vehicles so that they don't have to end up losing the car.
And now to further discuss what goes on when the bank repossesses your vehicle and what your rights are as a consumer, let's welcome our studio guest this afternoon. Asasibungele ke Kwanda Vabaza lobuya ehhovisi lelivikelako etimalini i-National Finance Ombudsman of South Africa. Siphinde samukele ke na Elias Shamatla lolola ke emalungelo ebathengi. Gentlemen, it's always a pleasure having you. Thank you so much for joining us. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting us.
Ndawuqala ngawe ke Elias, just picking up on what some of the viewers were saying earlier on. Is it my imagination, or do you find that so many consumers, especially who've defaulted on their arrears, are too afraid to speak to the bank because of the severity of their cases? They're just too afraid to approach the banks to tell them that they are actually unaware, or rather they are unable to finish off their debt?
Partly true. Yes, but why? Because you think if I say I can't afford to pay my car, they might say, okay, surrender it, return it back to us. Yeah. So therefore, you are scared. First of all, remember when you bought a car, as in your bank, you went to the dealer. The dealer has got a finance and insurance manager who applied for finance for you on your behalf. Where now you are told that you have been approved by a bank, and you went to collect the car from the dealer. You haven't spoken to the bank. I'm not talking about the people who do private finance. I'm talking about those ones who apply through the dealer. So now you have got a problem, and you don't have a relationship with this bank. Right. So when you have to approach them, sometimes the bank that you have never get involved with. So you think, hey, if I call them, they might say, please, sir, give us our car back. So that is one of the reasons why people can't approach the banks.
But interestingly, just picking up on the point that you said that you've never actually had a relationship with a bank, but you've had a relationship with a dealer. But then in instances where the bank debits your installment, that's how the bank fits into this conversation, isn't it?
Remember, at the application stage, the F&I manager, finance and insurance manager at the dealership applies for finance for you. And then once you get approved, you sign the documents, you are going to sign the debit order form at the dealership without setting a foot at the bank.
Yes.
You will never see the bank or the door of the bank unless if you default. If you don't default, you pay via the debit order. You will pay until you finish off your car after 60 months, and then you get your papers without setting your foot in the bank.
Right, right.
But the minute you encounter a financial hardship, that's when you have to establish this relationship with the bank. For example, you know that there are finance houses who don't have transactional accounts. They only finance cars, right? You haven't had a relationship with that finance house before. It's your first time to encounter them. So how do you approach them? But on the other hand, if you are up to date with your account, try to phone your credit provider and make an arrangement up front. Most probably they're going to say no. Why? Because you are going to increase their bad debt book. They don't want to activate your account on the debt management system. Okay. Because we're not to increase our workload. Okay. That's why if you foresee that you are going to fall into arrears, when you call them and say, I'm pregnant, I'm going to deliver a baby within 2 months, I'm applying for, let's say, payment holiday, they're going to say no. Because you're going to increase their book. They say wait until you default. Okay. Once you have defaulted, because the system is going to activate you automatically if you fail to pay, then they can be able to deal with you.
Okay. Yes. Kwanda, let me also bring you into this conversation. There's this gray area between me dealing with a bank and dealing with a car dealership. And then when I default, it's the bank that approaches me. Yet I've never had a relationship with the bank.
I think from my experience and from the cases that we've seen, right, people normally get credit from the bank that they bank with. So it's not a new relationship that starts just because the bank is providing finance for them. So there has always been a relationship. Now, your FNI, for instance, obviously they go and search for you the best interest rate. So that's what they do. So they will try and find you the best interest rate. It's up to you as a customer to say, yes, you want this interest, or you still want to bank with your bank. Right. So it's your choice as a customer. You can opt for that. And I must say, from experience again, Tina, the complaints that we've seen and people saying they're struggling financially, banks and other financial institutions, they've always been willing to try and assist. Now, we've had engagements as an office, and I think the one thing that has always been said by AmaBank is that they're not there to try and get you in trouble, right? They want to assist you before you actually get in trouble. So hence they have a whole lot of options available for customers. I mean, there are policies to assist consumers who are in financial distress. What are some of these schemes
or policies?
For instance, the payment holidays Elias was talking about. Now, Tina, from what we've seen, is it was always advisable for you as a consumer, if you see it in future, to experience some financial difficulties, for you to go beforehand and tell your bank, tell your credit provider that I will not be able to pay an installment, a full installment. They've always been willing to make an arrangement with you. Either you can pay a reduced installment or the payment holiday, which is not paying. And I think when we were dealing with the cases, a lot of them, back in the days, it was 6 months. I mean, for a period of 6 months, people without paying any installment. Those options have always been available, but they were always available for those people who were not in areas. They were not defaulting. So after you've defaulted, unfortunately, that's when things got tricky, because the banks used to say that this person has been defaulting. They waited up until the account or the areas were high before they came and asked for assistance, and thereafter, then banks were not willing to assist.
Ngoba sasiboneke lizinga lema repossessions ukuthi linyuke kakhulu. Ucabanga ukuthi kubangwa yini ukuthi linyuke lizinga? What could be the cause of this?
It's a combination of issues and all interlinked. I mean, we know here sitting la namuhla ukuthi, I mean, the cost of living is high. I mean, yonke into ikhuphukile. Whether it's food, it's electricity, it's petrol, everything went up. I think I recently heard now ukuthi VAT is going to go up. And all those things basically say that what we could afford back in the days, I mean, people could pay for a lot of things. You could pay for food, you could pay for imoto yako, you could pay for your bond. But because of all these things now going up all at once, then obviously some things are impacted. And some of our salaries, they stayed the same. And because they stayed the same, we're no longer able to afford the things that we were able to afford, like imoto, for instance. That's the cost of living. Other issues are, for me, people not understanding the contracts that they're signing. For instance, a variable interest rate. Absolutely. Some people, they do not understand the impact of that. interest rates have gone up. I mean, 2020, when COVID was around, a whole lot of people went and took credit, not understanding that the interest will one day go up. And because now they've gone up, they're no longer able to afford the things that they were able to afford. So those are some of the issues that are impacting people and obviously resulting in them not being able to meet their debts.
Yeah. Elias, having said that, why is it important for consumers to approach the bank, to discuss the bank on what other viable options are there for them?
Well, because at that time you've got a bargaining power, because you are not at risk yet. If you go to them and say, oh, I can afford to pay, I can afford X amount, sometimes they will say, okay, cover the interest for 3 months, and then go back to the contractual installment. Or they can offer you the private sale. Now the banks have got something like a help you sell, quick sell. So they've got their own websites, private websites. You see the cars that we buy from the auction, they've got a separate auction for the dealers only. So that website is accessed by the dealers only.
Oh, it's not open to the consumers and the public?
Yeah, no, it's not accessible to the consumers and the public. So when I say consumer, if you say to the bank, I can't afford to pay my car, they will say to you, take the pictures of the car, send them to us, we'll send you the form to give us a mandate to sell the car on your behalf. So they're going to advertise the car there, and they're going to auction it to the dealers. If the dealers are interested, they will buy the car from you, and then they will give you 40% discount on the shortfall. That's how it works.
Ah, I see.
If nobody buys it because the car has got scratches and so forth, then it will go to the normal auction.
Oh, right, got you, got you. Asishiye lapho ke gentlemen, kwamanje ke mbukele sesike shelela ngasetitolo. Please to join us after this break. Leli ke Yilungelo Lakho, don't go away. Sikwamukela futhi ngibukela icingo tethu setivuliwe manje ukuthi nawe ungaba ingcenye yehlelo lethu namhla ungashaya icingo khona manje la e-studio ku-0117140671 noma ke 0117140672 ungasithumela futhi na WhatsApp ku-060-844-9857 noma ke usithumele i-email ku-consumer@sabc.co.za or even like our Facebook page. Namhla ke sikhuluma ngamalungelo akho nekuthi kumele kwenteke ini nangabe ke libhange lifuna ke kudla noma kurepossessa imoto yakho, what are your rights are and what are the processes that the banks need to follow. And speaking of which, gentlemen, I want us to discuss the consumers' rights when it comes to repossessions. Naku-ke ngiyahamba ngisemall noma nguphi ngilandzele abantu bathi ke bathunyela ibhange lelitsite bafuna ukuthatha le moto yami khona lapha estradini. What does the law say about that?
Well, if they don't have a court order, it means that you have to agree, you have to give a consent to them to take the car by signing the Section 127 forms, which is voluntary surrender, right, in terms of the National Credit Act. If you don't have that, they can't take the car. It's theft. Because they don't have any authority. A case in point, in Midrand.
But it's the bank's car, and I've defaulted.
Let me give you a case study. In Midrand, the bank stopped the lady on the road, and they wanted to take the car by force. She called us. We said, drive to the police station. Luckily, she was close to the police station. When she entered there, she screamed to the police that here are the people following me. And then the police asked them, guys, come inside the charge office. What's your problem? They said, we want to repossess the car. We have been sent by the bank. The police said, show us the court order. They didn't have. And then the police said, we are going to arrest you.
Oh, okay.
You don't have authority to repossess the vehicle, only if the consumer surrenders the vehicle. Other than that, you have to follow the law.
Right, right. What's your experience on that, Kwanda?
I think just to add on that, yes, definitely there must be a court order, one, and it must be by a sheriff of the court. It has to be sheriff. An original court order, a sheriff can only repossess imoto.
Not the bank.
Not the bank, not the credit provider, not its employees, not abantu nje who come bazothi listen, here's a document, it's a court order, we must take the car. No, do not believe them. So they must show you proof that, one, they're the sheriff of the court, and two, they must show you that it is an original court order authorizing them. They must take that car. If it is the sheriff.
How do I see that? How do I see that it's an original?
It will be stamped.
Signs?
So it has to be by the sheriff of the court, and it will definitely have a stamp, secot. There has to be a stamp from a court authorizing them to take imoto. If you're not sure or you suspect that you've been defrauded, you can still refuse. Go to a police station. Elias Shamatla, go to the police station and let Amapoisa witness this thing and let them tell you this is authentic or not. But if it is not authentic, if it is not a sheriff of the court, refuse and do not sign any documents. Do not sign any documents, because in a lot of the cases, people are told, no, we're taking them out for storage. When I just sign here, and then after you've sorted your issues with the credit provider, then you can come take your car. Not knowing you're surrendering imoto to them. And unfortunately, once you've surrendered that car, the only way also you told back is if you pay all the areas plus whatever reasonable cost incurred. So I'm a cost of the sheriff, Izindaba, the legal costs incurred for them to take that car back. So if you do not pay those things, and you will not get that car, they will sell it.
Okay, I get that. Vele kumele kube ne-court order. So the process itsini according to the law in terms of executing that particular court order. Are they allowed ukuthi ke ngisemgwaqweni ngihamba nabantu abami and then bafike bathathe le moto bangishiye lapha estradini?
So funny enough, on that aspect, I mean, besides banks, there's other people who provide finance, right? So we've seen complaints, for instance, from taxi owners coming to our office saying that these people came by forced abantu of e-taxi and wanted to take it by force in Izindaba. So those complaints, we see them. It is not allowed. Okay. It is not allowed.
Even if there's a court order?
Unless if there is a court order and it is by the sheriff.
But will the court order allow the sheriff to repossess the car on the streets and then leave people, stranded?
Yes. No, a sheriff will take the car wherever they find it. So normally when they take the taxi, then they will have to obviously arrange for another taxi, because some people normally they would have paid. But in the one case that we dealt with, so they drove with the person to go and drop off abantu and then took the car after.
All right, yes. Makes sense. Let's take our first caller. Sina Anonymous Pagetegwini Sagomode Helen Sawbona. Anonymous in Durban, good afternoon. Welcome to the show.
Yes, how are you?
Speedile Baba Kunjan.
Ngiyaphila futhi ngifisa ukuzwa la ukuthi if sebayithathile imoto kuwe bayidla bayirepossessa, then why manje kuba khona ibalance ekuthiwa kufanele ikhokhwe uwe? Is it fair ukuthi kube kanjalo?
Okay, Anonymous, great question. Thank you so much. Sicela ubukele ke mamabona kutsa wakho kutayitfola leyo mphendvulo yakho. That's such a good question. Kuthi ke imoto bayithathile and then I still have to continue paying. Why?
Let Ombudsman answer.
Okay, go for it.
So the simple answer to that question is, Mautenga imoto, right? Utenga imoto for 400,000, yes, for instance, and then that's excluding interest. Let's say total cost of credit for Leo Moto. Total cost means including about service fees, interest and konke, insurance and all that, right? Uzopatala, let's say 700,000, right? That is how much you owe, right? Normally, total cost of e-credit. But then, mabe repossessa le moto, let's say you're now owing 300,000. They sell it by Tengisa for 50,000 because it has lost e-value. Now you owe them 250,000. So a bank or the credit provider, it means that they did not recover 250. They sold the motor, but they did not sell it for yonke le mali boyikolota, the 300. There's still a shortfall as a consumer. And unfortunately, yes, legally and by the contract you agreed to uzopatala that whole amount. So they will sell it, and if there is a shortfall, as a consumer, you're liable.
Okay.
But coming back to Elias's point, if you surrender the car, then you have a room to negotiate the shortfall, because even if you surrender a motor, you give it back to them, they can take it, they can sell it, and it does happen with a shortfall. And if there is a shortfall, because you took the initiative as a consumer to try and save yourself, some financial institutions, they do understand, and they will say, for instance, with that shortfall, we can write it off, or you can pay back that shortfall interest-free. So there's room to negotiate.
Right.
Yes.
So, e-consumer since the car has been taken, I mean, I've got no car. I mean, all along I was paying for a car, but since the car is not there, what am I paying for? What are the implications for not paying after the car has been repossessed?
You're going to be blacklisted. You can't buy another car until you have cleared that debt. Normally, one thing that people don't talk about is the issue of the insurance.
Yes.
You take insurance, or you insure your car for a certain amount, or for the full book value. And if the car gets stolen, or it gets written off, the insurance settles the book value. But when you are still owing on the car, for example, your car is worth 400,000. The insurance pays 200,000. You still have 200,000 shortfall to pay. Even if the car gets involved in an accident the same day, right? The value depreciates. There's going to be a shortfall. The bank is going to blacklist you same day. You know why? Because they're saying you have got a 60 months contract. However, there's no asset. You don't have security anymore. So they call up the debt. This is now a personal loan.
So even if the insurance has paid off the debt,
they pay the book value?
The book value, yes.
Yes, they didn't settle the debt.
Okay.
Because remember, you bought a car for 400,000.
And it depreciates.
It depreciates.
In value, yeah.
Yes. Now they pay, let's say, for example, 300,000 for argument's sake.
Yes.
The next day, you write off the car the next day because it's a GTI. So you have got 100,000 shortfall.
Yeah.
Right? The bank says, we want 100,000 now because you don't have a security anymore. We gave you that interest rate based on this security. We don't have collateral anymore. This is a personal loan. It's unsecured debt. Give us our money. Otherwise, we blacklist you now. That's what they do.
Sure. Interesting. Thank you so much for raising that point. Asibambe lapho ke mbukele sitseke shelela ngasetitolo. Leli lungelo lakho. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Kumbula ukuthi tincingo tethu solo tivuliwe ukuthi nawe ungaba ingcenye yale nkulumo yethu namhla ungashala licingo khona manje ku 011-714-0671 noma ke 011-714-0672. These are magic numbers on your screens right now. Shala licingo khona manje la e-studio noma ke usithumele i-WhatsApp ku 060-844-9857. You can also email your thoughts and topic suggestions to consumer@sabc.co.za noma ke usithinze inkundla yethu ekuxhumana ku Facebook. We've got another caller Sinasilo ulapha ke Ivory Park sakumola ehleleni sawubona.
Hello.
Silo in Ivory Park, good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for calling in. Welcome.
Thank you very much, sir. You know, I'm actually looking at, I was listening to your conversation with the guys who are dealing with cars and stuff.
Yes.
I'm saying that, you know what, you're actually giving a lie to us that, you know, the bank is really ripping us off because they'll never tell you all this disappointment when it comes to a point whereby your car is being repossessed due to the fact that you can't pay it anymore. And the other thing is that why should you pay, let's say as the gentleman was mentioning, why should you pay the 40%, they call it what is that term again? Shortfall for 40% after repossessing the car from you. Because, I mean, that car now, it's in their hands and they sell it cheaper to their buddies and stuff.
So your question is, why do you have to pay 40% of the shortfall when the car has been repossessed?
Yes.
Well, to my understanding, Elias did explain that you have to pay for the full debt. And if the car has depreciated, I mean, the value obviously drops, but the debt, the principal debt still remains. So you have to pay the balance of the principal debt that is remaining.
I think, you know, this matter should be given to, you know, the audience or to the listeners or the people who bought your cars, that if, for instance, if you lose your job or whatever, you can't pay your car anymore, you shouldn't give it back, you know, to the ever sheriff. You just hold it, keep it somewhere until you recover some money or negotiate with them, you know, that maybe you can pay it as a balloon, you know, do the balloon payment. Because still you have to lose a lot of money. Let's say the guy said 400,000, they sell it for 50,000. What is that?
So you're suggesting that if I can't pay the car, I should still keep it until I'm able to?
Sorry, come again?
So what you're basically saying is that if I can't afford to pay the car any longer, I should keep it until I'm able to pay it back?
Yeah, just keep it until such time that you can recover. I mean, back on your feet, or maybe arrange with the bank that you can pay a certain amount until you pay it off. Because I mean, it's a rip-off that they take your car, then you still have to pay 40% of that amount.
Well, Silo, I'm not a representative of any bank, but I suppose the banks are running a business, and if you don't pay the car and there's no money coming to them, I mean, they're losing in this particular instance, isn't it?
No, really, it's a rip-off. I think, most of the people, especially we black people, must be very much aware of that, because you lose a lot of money,
All right.
Yeah, there are circumstances beyond your control, whereby you can't afford to pay the owner anymore. Why should they take the car from you? And when you sign papers, when you're buying the car, they don't tell you that.
Right. Okay,
yeah,
Silo,
thank
great.
you very much anyway.
Silo, great chatting to you. Thank you so much for your call. Interesting points Silo raised there. Maybe you can ventilate on some of the points that you made.
Clarify the issue of 40% first.
Yes.
I was saying, if you voluntarily surrender the vehicle to the bank, or if they actually sell the car on your behalf on private sale. Remember I said, if they ask you to take pictures of your car, send to them, they're going to advertise the car for you, like they do with the property, right?
Okay. Yes.
So the agreement there is that if there's a shortfall, we will give you 40% incentive, 40% discount, meaning you win.
Oh, yes.
You understand? They are losing 60%.
Yes.
Yes, because they are saying you've got a shortfall, but because you are cooperative, you took initiative, you came to us to sell the car on your behalf, and we sold your car, we'll give you 40% discount. That's actually good for you. Because when I ask the owner of the car, you've got the right to sell the car to any dealership or to anyone and inform the bank that I've got an offer here of so much. I think it covers the full balance, or it's less. If it's less, can I sign acknowledgement of debt for the balance? Release the notice documents to the buyer. They do that all the time.
Okay.
Okay. So what he's saying is that if you can afford, you're experiencing a financial hardship, why don't they feel for you? I'm saying to Brazil in Ivory Park, if you lend your brother-in-law money to buy the car because he's got a job, or he wants to do whatever deliveries, and then he says to you, I'll pay you so much per month, and he doesn't pay you, must he keep the car? Because if the bank, if you hide the car, they report it stolen. And another bank that I know, actually, they even go to license department to block you. You can't renew the disc.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. And then when it comes to, maybe if you could just offer words of advice to the consumer, which is best, surrendering the car or just allowing the whole process of repossession to take hold?
It depends on what car it is, because if it's the car like TJ, you may as well, TJ's car, you may as well surrender it because nobody's going to buy it.
Yeah.
I'm just giving an example.
Okay.
But if it's the car that is saleable, go to different dealerships. You can even try consignment sale. Consignment sale says, the dealer, I've got this car, I don't want to sell it to you. Can you please sell it on my behalf? So the dealer is going to put you on the stand, advertise it on his website and everywhere. Okay. If the buyer buys it, he's going to take a certain percentage as a facilitation fee. Normally, they take about 10,000, 20,000 rand, depending on what car it is. How are they going to make their money? We spoke about this. The F&I manager is going to submit an application to the bank, and the bank is going to pay what is called DIC, Dealers Incentive Commission. That's where they make money.
Okay. But then what are the cost implications for each process? Cost implications for surrendering the car or letting the repossessors to take possession of the car? Okay,
if you surrender the car to them, they are going to auction it. There you don't have any say, because they're going to sell the car to the highest bidder. If you go to the dealerships and sell the car, at least you have got negotiation room to sell the car for. But if the bank says, no, the offer is too little, they will say to you, the offer is too little, we are taking the car to an auction. That's why on the auction list, you will see STC, subject to confirmation. So the auctioneer will announce that there's an offer of so much on this car. So we're going to start the bid from a certain amount.
Oh, right.
Yes.
Kwanda?
I think just to add on the cost implications of a repossession versus a surrender. So if you surrender imoto yako, then the contract is terminated. So there's no debit orders, there's nothing that happens. Everything stops.
But you're still liable to the shortfall.
No, so what normally happens is that then credit provider is then required to as soon as possible for the best price possible through an auction, njengoba Elias beganza. Then only after then this car is sold and then there is a shortfall, then you're liable now to then pay that shortfall. But during that time, I mean, you're not liable to do anything. Everything stops. When it comes to the repossession, there's legal costs.
Yes.
Then obviously there's legal costs for lawyers, the sheriff, and storage, and there's just a whole lot of costs that are then obviously compounded on that outstanding balance.
Right,
so when it comes to costs, a surrender would always be better than a repossession. But the best option, like Elias was saying, sell the car yourself.
Right.
At least therefore you're in control of the whole, process.
Yeah. All right, let's leave it there, gentlemen. For now, let's take another commercial break. Do stay with us. Yilungelo Lakho, don't go away. Sakumele kambukele ningakhohlwa ukushaya icingo khona manje la e-studio ku-011 7140671 noma ke 011 7140672 ungasithumela futhi ku-WhatsApp i-WhatsApp ku-060 8449857 or email your views to consumer@sabc.co.za or alternatively interact with us on our social media platforms. Those platforms are live. So let's now take our next caller, Sina Anonymous in Randfontein. Good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for calling in. Welcome. Good afternoon, sir. Welcome. What's on your mind? Talk to me.
Yes. I just wanted to ask that, is it possible, like as the owner of the car goes to the bank with his or her lawyer to go and negotiate, like selling the car for like himself, like again, like the bank says like they want to sell it.
Yes.
But then now I go there as the owner to say, no, let me sell it so that I can pay you the rest of the money that I owe for the bank.
Okay, so you're basically asking which one is more viable, selling the car on my own or allowing the bank to sell the car on my behalf?
No, me as the owner, not the bank to sell the car.
Okay.
Yes. Is it possible now for the owner to sell it, like make an agreement with the bank to say, let me sell it because of, maybe sometimes we can negotiate better than the banks.
Okay, Anonymous, thank you so much for your question. Please tune in to Yilungelo Lakho on SABC right now. You'll get your answer. We are is it possible or is it allowed for me to sell the car?
People do that all the time when they trade in their cars at the dealerships to buy another car.
Yeah.
Basically, you are selling the car to the dealer. You are allowed.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
But you definitely need the consent of the credit provider.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. The consent actually comes in.
He's actually raising another point, yes. When it comes to the consent, because the consent we're speaking of the notice documents. The notice documents belong to the credit provider, yes, not the car owner.
Yes.
So if I want to sell the car, then what really happens when it comes to the documentation?
To protect both the seller and the buyer, you have to do it through the bank, right? So the bank is going to facilitate the sale. They're going to say to the buyer and the seller, go and meet at a certain dealership.
Okay.
So they talk to the sales manager there to say, please facilitate the deal for us. Mr. A is the buyer, Mr. B is the seller. They have agreed on the price. Make sure that there's a handover, there's a delivery of the vehicle from the seller to the buyer. And then once that has been done, then the bank is going to release the documents to the buyer, because they say the buyer mustn't pay to the seller if it's a private sale. The buyer must pay into the bank's account.
Okay.
The vehicle has an asset finance account.
Oh, got you.
Yes. So if you sell the car for 80,000, right? Or let's say you sell for 100,000, but the settlement is 80,000. I'm going to give you 20,000, 80,000 I pay to the bank. Once I've paid it, the bank is going to give me the papers. Because you and I are going to sign OTP, offer to purchase, that you have sold the car to me, I've paid your full balance.
Right.
So the bank is going to courier the documents to me. So we do that all the time.
Now, gentlemen, I need to pick your brain on this, both of you. So in the case of a surrender of a car, and then the bank auctions the car, and then for some stroke of luck, the car fetches far more than what I'm owing. What then happens to that?
So it does happen that if you owe 400,000 and the bank, then you surrender that car, then they sell it for 500,000, for instance. Then the bank will first take, obviously, the money that is owed to them, the 400,000. Then that 100,000 is a surplus, and that surplus has to be paid to you as a consumer. So it will be paid into your account. That's your money.
Right, right. So the surplus is only paid after all the other costs have been covered, like shortfall and everything else?
Correct.
Right, right.
Yes.
We've also had a question when it comes to takeover installments. Someone has asked that if I get someone to take over my installment, is it allowed? Is it technical? Is it viable?
It's illegal because the person that is taking over is a third party. We have seen a case of the two brothers. One bought a vehicle and he couldn't afford to pay any longer. So the younger brother took over the installments from him. After he has settled the account in full, the bank sent the papers to who? To the owner. And the owner refused to give to him, and he demanded his car back.
Right, right. So even if we engage the bank in this arrangement, it'll still
They won't
be
allow
illegal?
it, because if you want the car, buy it from this one. The bank will finance you.
Oh, okay.
So
okay.
I think a similar situation is, for instance, where someone passes on, right, and then the family wants to keep Imoto. The car is financed, and let's say there is no insurance that settled that outstanding balance. Now the family wants to take over that car and not sell it or whatever. So what would normally happen is that then the bank will want to do an affordability assessment first. They need to make sure that whoever is going to take over that car will be able to make those installments. So they won't just give the car to the person. Even, for instance, with the story of the two brothers. So what should happen is that the brother who wants to take over the payments will need to go to the bank, and then they must do an affordability assessment. And obviously, if they do an affordability assessment, if that ever happens, then the transfer then will have to be obviously be to the person's who's going to be paying his name, not the other person. So it is a long process, but I've never seen it.
Right, right. No, got you. We've got another caller. We've got Anonymous from Report. A very good afternoon to you. Thanks for calling in. Welcome. Anonymous in Report, good afternoon.
Hi, thank you very much for taking my call. I just want to ask Bontate there. I bought a car from someone, and this guy gave me all the documents, but unfortunately, I didn't check that this guy was still owing the bank. So I tried to trace this guy is nowhere to be found. So I phoned the bank. The money was just little 6,000. So I wanted to pay that money, but the bank refused to take the money from me. So I don't know what to do, and I'm still driving the car, and this guy is nowhere to be found, and I've been driving the car for 5 years now.
So just a quick question, Anonymous. How did the person give you the car papers when the car was still owing? Because apparently my understanding is that you don't get the latest documents or the car papers without having fully paid it off.
Yes, I think I made a mistake there, because the gentleman, I'm listening to him there, when you are buying the car that is still owing, you're supposed to make a deal with the bank. He was supposed to go to the bank and come with the document. But he came with that and said, okay, 6,000 I will go and pay, and then I will come with the settlement document to you. But we did go to the bank. We were writing everything. He gave me the proof of, he gave me the letters that he was the owner of the car and everything. The only thing that was left was that letter that was supposed to give it to me of the settlement from the bank. Then when I went to the bank to go and I wanted to pay that money, 6,000 then the bank said they won't take that money from me. Even if I was having this guy, I did document everything to show that I bought the car from him. So they said no, they want him so that they can give him the document to say he settled the car. So I'm driving the car without settlement letter here. So I've been going from up and down to try to get to the house, but I couldn't get assistance from anywhere. And I'm still driving the car. Wow,
interesting. Interesting story. Thank you so much for calling in, Anonymous. Our guests will definitely, advise you on what to do. Very interesting, issues that she raised there.
I understand that she doesn't have the NATIS document.
She doesn't have the, she doesn't have the NATIS document.
Is the car settled?
No, it's owing 6,000.
It's owing 6,000, but the bank wouldn't accept that 6,000 from her. And I don't think it makes sense, because money is money. If there's money coming in to clear this particular debt, does it matter where it's coming from?
No.
It happens quite often.
Really?
Yeah, and 6,000 is familiar, it's popular. We have dealt with that before. So the bank cannot go and repossess the car because it's owing 6,000.
But why would they refuse, an offer to pay off that 6,000?
Because she spoke to the bank. But if she goes to pay quietly, they will take it. Because you can send your child to go and pay for you. You can send me to go and pay for you. Don't ask me any questions. But the minute you say, I want to pay, this car is for Elias Shamatla, I'm driving, you tell them a story. They will say, I'm going to talk to Elias.
Oh, okay.
But if you just come here and say, I'm paying, here's your 6,000 rand, they will take it. Remember, you're talking to the teller.
Yeah.
Or you're doing EFT, they will take it.
Sure.
So she was negotiating with the bank that I bought the car, wara, will you give me the papers and stuff like that?
Yeah.
They'll say, go and talk to the seller.
Hectic. I see Sheila Pogembugeli. Sasel carefully flag Twitter. Please do join us after this break. Siyabuya khona manje. Leli, Yilungelo Lakho. Welcome to our very final segment. When it comes to repossession of cars, what your rights are and the processes that need to be followed. Just before we wrap the show, let's talk about some of the tactics that debt collectors and repossessors apply to enforce you to sign certain documents, pretty much against your will.
Okay, first of all, if I'm the collections manager or the legal manager at the credit provider, I'm given a target of how much to bring to the bank or bring the assets back. So I've got the collectors reporting to me, right? I give them targets. So what they do nowadays is that they will say, we need a certain number of units per month. That's the number of cars. Certain number of units on private sale to sell privately, and the money. So these guys, remember, some of them are not skilled. They can't even convince the girl to move from the lounge to the bedroom. Now this person is going to convince you to surrender the car or to pay. You don't have money. It takes a skill, to get you to pay or to surrender the vehicle. So in this case, the collector has to say to you, sir, these are your options. Not to say, if you don't pay, we are going to repossess the car. You must say, sir, these are your options. Keep the car or the installments or the arrears under 3 months.
Right.
If you are arrears under 3 months, I'm okay with my manager. You get my point? I won't be slapped, But if the installments exceed 3 months, I have to repossess. When as the consumer, you have to keep the installments under 3 months. But the problem is that these guys cannot convince you otherwise. So they have to come up with their own tactics. They will show you a letter and say, please sign here to show the bank that I came to do the inspection on the car.
Yes.
That is a voluntary surrender.
Yes.
It's section 127. They hide the heading of the letter. You sign the letter that the car came to inspect the car. After you have signed this letter, then he changes his attitude, says, give me the keys, you have signed.
Okay.
And then they take the car. Sometimes they'll come to you with the camera, saying they are coming to inspect the car and they want to take the mileage on the vehicle. So you have to bring the key, they can switch the car on. The minute they get in, the car is gone.
Interesting. Unfortunately, we're out of time. But Kwanda, if the Ombudsman Office determines that the repossession has been unlawful or the law was not followed when it comes to repossessing the car, can the Ombudsman then decide, or rather rule, for the credit providers to send the car back to the previous car owner? And maybe you can just tell us what are some of the circumstances that constitute an illegal or unlawful repossession?
One tactics that we're talking about, no person should be tricked into surrendering or giving away imoto yabo. If, as an ombud, if we find that the person actually never willingly gave that car to that credit provider, then as an ombud, previously, we've gotten credit providers to write off the entire balance owing on that debt. So we've made that determination. We've also had given people what we call a distress and inconvenience hour, depending on the circumstances of that case, of up to 50,000. So those are our powers. So any consumer out there, whether it's a bank customer or a non-bank credit provider customer who has such issues, they can always come to us. Tina, we do investigate these cases, and whenever we found maladministration or wrongdoing on the part of these credit providers, we definitely were able to make a lasting recommendation, one that our credit providers will never forget.
Right.
So that is basically what we're here to do, to just make sure that we balance the playing fields for everyone.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen, great chatting to you. Thank you so much for your time. It's an absolute pleasure. Great stuff. Hayi mbukeli sesifike kanjalo emaphethelweni lihlelo lethu namhla ke ngicangibonga edivakashi lethu ngesikhathi sabo ngithanza bonga kanye nani ngebabukeli ngekuba nathi kuze kube ngimanje asihlangana futhi ke elivikini elitako la kumamba phambili SABC 1 eMzansi for sure na ku SABC Plus lapho ke sitanilethela ke lenye indzaba letawuthinza wena nemalungelo akho njengabathengi. From me Simphiwe Ngongwane and the rest of the team sithi ke nitsale kahle. Do have a great week ahead. Cheers.
Hallelujah.